My name's Katie King, and I'm a managing director of a company called Zoodikers. We are a PR and social media agency, and basically, we are the PR team, the PR and social media agency for the Facilities Show. And I'm on the call with Lindsay Bredin from UBM, who are running the Facilities Show, and we've got the next hour to share with you our thoughts as to how you can exploit social media for the show. So I'll let Lindsay introduce herself fully first, and then we can I'll carry on and we can get started properly. I'm not actually hearing I'm not actually hearing you there, Lindsay. So I'm just going to carry on there because I'm not quite sure what's happening with the sound, but I'm guessing that that's actually working fine. But sorry if there's a problem there. But do type if you need to kind of let me know what's actually happening there. So as I say, my name's Katie King from Zoodikers. We are the PR and social media agency for the Facilities Show. And we've also been working in the facilities sector for the past 3 or 4 years with a number of companies such as ISS, FSI. We've done media training with people like Mighty and Norland and Vinci and many different facilities companies. So hopefully we're very well placed to actually help you, with your preparation for the Facilities Show. So I've got the next bit of time to actually talk you through how that's going to work. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, so on our agenda this afternoon, we're looking at how you can develop an event strategy, what the digital marketing funnel is, and how you can actually convert leads, certain activity and content that you can create pre, during, and post the actual show, certain key considerations, and obviously some time at the end for a Q&A. So that's what we're planning to cover. I want to really start by looking at how you develop an event strategy. And really kind of, there'll be a chance for you at the end to ask questions around that. But for me, the start point is the following, is actually thinking about who your target audience is, what it is that you're trying to communicate with them, asking questions, difficult questions. And I say it's a difficult question because more often than not, PR and social media can appear in a silo and aren't necessarily aligned with the overall marketing. So it's really, I'm not saying that, you've got time prior to the show to sort everything out, but in an ideal world, the strategy for, you exhibiting an important show like this, which has a big outlay in investment and time, would be aligned with your overall marketing activity. So that's really important to consider. Which conversations you're actually going to be monitoring. Are you deciding in advance who you're going to be talking to? What are the conversations that you're going to monitor pre, during, and post the actual event? And what are the actual activities in those 3 phases that you're actually going to be doing? So, basically the start point for that, for me, when we're working with any clients, whether that's on a project or whether that's on a sort of an ongoing basis, is this matrix that I've got here. So the start point for this matrix is you thinking about where the revenue for your facilities management business comes from. What's your typical revenue? Where have you generated revenue from in the past? So, for example, that might be that you're at the show and you're trying to reach out to your existing clients and you're showing them that you're there, you're showing them that you've got incredible products and services. And so your business objective might be using the show as an opportunity to reach out to them, show them that you're there, retain their business, do some great client hospitality with them. So your marketing objective might well be not raising awareness because they already know you, they're already working with you, but maybe cross-selling some new services. So if you have a particular product or service that they already use, maybe at the show you're demonstrating a new service that you're about to launch. That might be slightly different if we move down that box slightly to a new audience, which might be a potential client. Maybe you're exhibiting at the facilities show in order to gain £1 million or £300,000 worth of new business or 3 new clients, or however you might package that up. And therefore, your business objective is going to be a financial one of securing business, but your marketing objective might be more based around what is it that that they need to know about you. So it's awareness, it's gaining interest, gaining desire, the old AIDA principle of awareness, interest, desire, and action. And the next 3 boxes are, how do they need to perceive you as a brand? And therefore, what messages can you convey? Maybe it's about trust. Maybe it's about having an incredible reputation. Maybe it's differentiating you from your competitors. So those sorts of things are important. The messages that you can then convey will be across all the different platforms. So it might be that you need to prove that you're trustworthy by demonstrating that through an excellent video of a client testimonial or an amazing endorsement or recommendation for you on LinkedIn. And then the final column is really about what are the channels, what are the influential channels that you can use to influence those prospects, to influence those partners or those media. That might be Twitter, it might be a LinkedIn group, it might be direct, it might be through IFMnet or one of those particular journals. So this might be, this might already be a matrix that you already use in your organizations, to kind of plan. But if not, perhaps you might find it useful as a way of thinking about your planning for the facility show and how you go about, getting business. So the next slide really is, ultimately we're not just jumping on the bandwagon of Twitter. We're not just going to an exhibition because it's been in our budget for the past 5 years. We're there because we want to be focused on our business goals. And so this slide is really about saying, how do we plan? We plan by thinking about what we want to achieve, going back to that slide previously. But we also use it as an opportunity to go to the show and research and listen, a bit like when you go into social media. You're not just there to broadcast, you're there to actually research and find out what's being said by whom, what your competitors are doing, how people are pricing things, and so on. The next section really is, how do you analyze that? What insights have you learned? What are you going to do with that knowledge, which is kind of touching upon an important subject like big data, for example. So, you go along, you get lots of information, you hear things on LinkedIn, you see things on Twitter, you get involved with the facilities show blog, and so on. And then the final one really is, once you have those insights, you can plan how you're actually going to engage with those people that you want to actually do business with. The next slide is really the journey that we try and take people on when we're working for them for PR, when we're working for them on social media. And you have a start point and you have a destination. And within that, on part of that kind of route map to achieving your business goals, are all kinds of key points. And I'll just pick upon, some of the key ones there, some of the key points within them. As I mentioned at the bottom there, integrated marketing is really important. So we're talking there about, public relations. We're talking there about webinars, events, direct mail, and so on. But we're also talking about the need to have great content. So if you're going to be at the show, presumably you've got great exhibition graphics, you've got an interesting story to tell, you're going to be tweeting, you're going to be putting out press releases, you're going to potentially be creating some really interesting infographics and so on. If you're on social media, if you're on Facebook as an example, and I'd only really touch upon Facebook in this example of paid for advertising, but it may be that you're using the publications, the media, and you're placing some paid for advertising. But where we're talking about social media, then if it's Facebook, then you have to be looking at paid for advertising. But other than that, certainly your Google Plus, your YouTube, your Instagram, your Twitter, all of those can be done very cost effectively without any paid for advertising. Moving over to the right there, we're then talking about having social listening, doing measurement, thinking about how you capture the information. So do you have a scanner? Are you going to, get the leads in from people that visit your stand? Are you going to add those people into your LinkedIn, then add them into your database and your CRM, invite them 2 months later to your own bespoke conferences, to your hospitality events, and so on? And all of this really is about the yellow one there, the community management, the need to post, respond, engage with people. And then at the final one at the very top is probably the most fundamental for companies that are approaching this, particularly, starting it from scratch, because this is about the culture that needs to be ingrained at the top of an organization for this to really filter down and be really, really effective. So the culture there is important, and it's about the management team, the board, understanding the importance of PR and social media, making sure that there are guidelines in place, that people have objectives, people can understand the benefits and are aware of the need to be really proactive and to be willing to learn and to show that it's bigger than just marketing, that it can have an impact on the overall organization. So, some points here before the show, important pointers to think about prior to actually turning up at the show in June. So, really, we're talking here about creating a buzz, over the different channels that are available. So, using LinkedIn to identify your target prospects. Many of you will already have a business plan that has particular companies and organizations there as your target prospects. Before you meet them, if you're planning to invite them to your hospitality, or you're planning to meet them around the show, use LinkedIn to really get to the nitty gritty of what they're about. Who are these people? Who is the decision maker in an organization? What groups are they a member of, for example, in LinkedIn? What are they posting about? What's really important to them? Who's their football team? What sport do they like? Which university did they go to? All really important ways of getting to know the individuals who will be the people that make the decision about whether or not to buy your products and services. So you can obviously use the LinkedIn group for the facilities show. That's obviously very active as well, and that's an important thing to do prior to the event, because you might have individually 200 or 300, maybe 1,000 connections on LinkedIn. As a company, you might have one of the showcase pages, or you may only have a certain number of followers on your company page. But if you go in and you join a group like the Facility Show group, or the Building Futures group, or BIFM, or one of the magazines, your message could be posted to potentially 10, 15, 20,000 people, all of whom are very interested in this sector. So that's really important way. We do a lot of training with, with salespeople, with HR people, with marketing people, to get them to really understand the benefits of a LinkedIn group and of social media per se for sales leads, for exploiting your, being at an exhibition. So it might seem really obvious, but you're not just there to stand on the stand for a few days and hope that you get some leads. Ideally, you've prepped in advance. You're arranging meetings, you're arranging demos prior to the actual event. Another really important thing you can do is submit articles to the Facility Show blog. Contact Lindsay, contact my team, if you want to do that, and we'll try and get your material onto the Facility Show blog. And the final point there really on this slide is, don't forget that the social media, the tweeting and the posting, is there to support the face-to-face interaction. It's not there in place of it. There have been incredible developments, and there has been a major transformation in the workplace and in the way that people communicate. But ultimately, people still buy from people. And it's really important that you convey your brand, and you as the individual people on the stand trying to sell at the event, embody the values of the organization and do as much as you can prior to it, and obviously in the follow-up, to make that really work. So opportunities at the show, obviously there's a huge number of opportunities there, and here are some of them. And you'll be creating your own ones, but these are just some that we can recommend, that you actually take advantage of. So the Twitter wall, this is going to be an opportunity to match the visitors with the people that are exhibiting. So please do take advantage of that and talk to our teams about how you can actually do that. There are going to be roundtables, there are going to be debates, which you can obviously get involved with. We want you to get involved in the app and all the news feed that's going to be running across the Facility Show app. So give us your information, so that we can share that to a much wider public, to your fellow exhibitors and to obviously the delegates that are coming along too. So for those of you that are already on Twitter or are planning to be prior to the show, please message @FactShow, and please take advantage of the hashtag. A couple of things there. Using the @message means that if you actually put people's @name, the Twitter handle, into your tweet, they will receive that in their notifications. And it's a way effectively of making that person on Twitter aware of you, rather than it simply appearing in their news stream if they're following you. And the same with the hashtag, it's a way of being discoverable to a much wider group of people. So you might tweet, and your tweet might only be seen by your 300 followers or your 10 followers or your 2,000. But if you use the hashtag #FactShow, then that's going to get seen much more widely. And it may be then that those people retweet that. And so, for example, you stand up at an event at the show and you speak to, say, 50 people in one of the seminar rooms. That could get retweeted by those people because they found you by #FactShow, and you could actually be visible and your message could be seen and heard by 20, 30,000, huge numbers of people. So we're talking here about ways of making your message direct, but also making your message potentially shareable to a very wide audience. And it's your opportunity to be really visible and, to make sure that your brand is there in front of key influencers within key think tanks, the key organizers such as the BIFM and people like that. So that's really important as well. Bear with me. Sorry, there we go. And so, that's a really good opportunity for you as well to make sure that that's visible. The next opportunity really to think about is actually using the Facility Show as an opportunity to brief the media. So, this presumes that you do have something worth saying to these key publications. If you do, then I would certainly encourage you to reach out to the likes of Tomorrow's FM and IFM.net and Facilities Management Journal and This Week in FM. Make an appointment to brief them on the stand if possible. And like I said in a couple of points ago, use it as an opportunity to engage with them on Twitter. So at IFM.net, at This Week in FM, at FMJ Today, they're all there and they're very active, and they obviously have important content that they want to share as well. So they have a blank Twitter feed and they're looking for content every day. So if you can make their job easy for them, then of course you can send them in the traditional way, press releases, and you can email those to them. But it may well be that they can @message and retweet your stories that they've received via Twitter as well. And then you could send a tweet saying, as featured today on @FMJ Today, with a link to that particular piece of editorial coverage in your tweet that links straight to their website, which is really important for extra credibility. So it's obviously a great way to engage with them prior to the show. And like I mentioned, it's important perhaps if you have news, but maybe not. Maybe also you don't have a really big service to launch or product to display, but maybe you want to build a relationship again or engage afresh with, Martin Reed or Simon Yattrou. So, maybe you just say to them casually, come along and meet us for a coffee or join us for a cocktail on our stand, at lunchtime or when the show ends. So, it might just be about relationship building as well as sharing with them some of your, important news stories. So on that point, on to content creation. And this is the big one. This is the one that many of our clients and many of the people that we train ad hoc or, on an ongoing basis, if we go into a company and spend a day training all their marketeers or their PR people or their sales people, this is the big one that challenges everybody. So we're looking here about all kinds of forms of content, all different formats. It might be a really exciting photograph of your service being used in a local authority or in Jamie Oliver's restaurant, or your washrooms featuring in a particular company in Barclays, for example. Maybe you take some Instagram images of that and you post them up. Maybe you're at the show and you're taking advantage of the Vine app that you can use on Twitter, which enables you to actually take some little 6-second clips. It might be a quick clip of your CEO speaking. It might be, for example, a quick overview of the fun approach that you've taken to the stand and some of the props that you're using. So, take advantage of Vine, take advantage of the trending hashtags, and video as well. Maybe you've got an in-house team, or you're taking advantage of, for example, our video team who are going to be there, and you're creating little video clips that then get shared over your YouTube channel, for example, and you post them in your update on LinkedIn. So, don't just think about just a press release that you send to the press office and you hope appear in the show daily or on the show blog. Think of all the other forms of content that you could take advantage of. So what we're trying to do with that content is to create what I describe as an ecosystem of influence. If we think back to a couple of earlier slides, we're identifying upfront who our target customers are, who our existing customers are, who our media influences are. Maybe it's the people like Guy Stallard at KPMG and the Building Futures Group and the media and 3 or 4 big clients that we're going after. So what we're trying to do is we're talking to them directly. We're then popping up continuously on their radar through LinkedIn updates and through Twitter in order to make it so much easier and more credible for people to do business with us. And so just a brief example, we worked prior to ISS floating on the stock exchange. We worked for 15 months to actually effectively digitize them. And one of the things that we actually did was to, do a video blog for Richard Sykes, the CEO. But we also did, regular infographics. So videos are an incredible opportunity to, have the written word, but to turn that blog into a video blog as well. And as you know, video is, such an important medium for spreading the word. Given that YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, it can be very powerful for your search engine optimization. So, think of using that kind of thing prior to the show and post show to effectively build credibility and thought leadership. So that's a great opportunity to use that kind of content. The next one is an example of, a way of turning what might be a very dry 10,000 word white paper into something a little bit more exciting that effectively takes the form of an infographic. I've got an example there of one in a different sector in cloud computing. We did some for ISS all about health and safety in the kitchen, and we did things at Christmas and through other points in the calendar. And so you turn that into effectively a piece of editorial that you want to be shared to other people to make it viral. And it has a name check for you, but ultimately it is about that being a shareable piece of information that builds your thought leadership. So that's important too. So if you can come up, and I know a good tool called Infogram, which is infogr.am, which is a good place to get free infographics tools created. But many of you will hopefully have people in-house who can design and come up with these sorts of graphics that can then be turned into an infographic. So think about that kind of information that you can use prior to the show, that you can start to share in the weeks leading up to it and during the show, and obviously after the show as well. So, we've kind of covered the getting the strategy right, what we're going to be doing after the show as well. So, really the keys here are joining up all the dots and making sure that you have the opportunity to follow up with everybody. So hopefully you'll come away from the show with a group of business cards. Maybe you'll take advantage of the scanners and you'll come away with 50, 100, 300 connections. A good thing you can use, there's a little app called Card Munch that allows you to scan those business cards with your smartphone, and it will automatically invite those people to connect with you on LinkedIn. That's one good way of doing it. Or you do that manually, or you literally grab the email addresses from the scanned software and pop that into your LinkedIn in the email section where you add the connections. So that's just a great way of making sure that the people that you've met at the show, that you've got business cards from, who've popped their business card by just popping into your stand, then connect with you on LinkedIn. And a little trick there as well with LinkedIn is, having then got all of those people connected, you export those into a CSV file, and then you've got that opportunity to add all of that information into your CRM package, so that you can then invite those people, to come to your exhibition in the future, or your own seminar, or your own hospitality event that you're hosting. So that's just a really good way of doing the follow-up. You can obviously continue that conversation on Twitter and on, promote yourselves, to the different facility show followers that you've seen who've taken advantage of the hashtag fact show. So, make a note of those people, follow them back and follow up with them. Maybe at the show you've taken some of those vines and you've managed to kind of share some of your videos. So start posting them in LinkedIn, post them in a group, for example, in a facility show group after the show, in your own groups that you might be setting up, via your website. All of these are, maybe they're obvious, but you'd be surprised the little amount of time that goes into the follow-up of an event, because we're all busy. We spend the money, prior to getting all the graphics ready. We pitch up on the day, we take down the stand, get back to our desks, and we have hundreds and hundreds of emails having been out of the office. And, this is the key bit. This is the bit that is going to make the opportunity for you to actually do some business and so on. And I know Lindsay's got some thoughts on that, so it might be a good opportunity, Lindsay, to kind of bring you in and see if you've got anything to add there, because I know that you've got an awful lot of preparation going on yourself, in the over the past few weeks with the build up to the show in June. So any particular points that you would want to add in there?
Yeah, hi everybody, and I'm presuming everyone can hear me now. Yeah, it's really, really busy over here at Facility Show, and we're looking forward to our first year in London, because it's obviously a big move for us from Birmingham to London this year. So yeah, loads going on, and we're hoping that we're going to create a big buzz online, and we really just want everyone to get involved and just have some fun with us as well, of course, alongside meeting contacts and building your business on that. So we should mention that we're going to have a prize for the best pre-show campaign and the best on-site campaign. So I hope you're going to compete and try and win it, and we'll have some prize and of course the kudos of saying that you've won it. So it'd be a nice little thing to put on the CV. I know I love those sorts of things to help build up my stuff. So yeah, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, we just want to make sure that everybody's following us on Twitter. We are actually, there was one small little mistake. I should take responsibility for it. It's at facilities_show is our account. So please make sure you're following us. There'll be a lot going on there. There was a mention of the buying request service. We're going to be setting up another Twitter account for that, which just to explain that, it's going to be part of our feature arena, and for visitors that are pre-registered and who also come to the event, we'll be asking them what they're looking for. So they may be looking for a sweeping solution, or some lockers, storage lockers, for their offices in Newcastle or something like that. So we'll be taking that information, we'll be tweeting about it, and then if your company can satisfy that, then you come to the meeting point and we'll give you the contact details. So my point in explaining that is just keep an eye out for that announcement, for that information we're sending out to, and make sure you follow that Twitter account also. I think, as Katie says, it's so broad, just make the most out of it. If you have any questions, please get in touch with us via Twitter. It's probably a good idea, and a very quick way of getting a response, or drop us an email, or direct mail us on via Twitter. Any way like that is really great. Anything else now? I think that's everything from our side.
That's great, Lindsay. Can you all still hear? I think you can all still hear me now. Yeah, I've just unplugged my microphone so I could hear you properly as well. So that's fantastic. And sorry we couldn't hear you earlier, but you've obviously introduced yourself now and covered that off. Thank you. So that's great. And Lindsay will be staying on in a few minutes when we continue the Q&A as well. So we'll leave you unmuted, Lindsay, for now, and I'll continue.
Okay, there was one more thing I just wanted to talk about is the app, just to explain it a little bit more. So please make sure you download. We haven't launched it yet. We're going to launch it in the next week or two. But the Protection and Management Week app, which will contain the Facility Show app. So please make sure you download that before you come down, and that will be available. It's another way that you can build your profile for the show, and that will have a news feed. And the way that you get a feed into it is by uploading to it. So it's not feeding in from anywhere else. You have to actively upload onto it, and that'll be a great way, both in the run-up and particularly on site, to put your stand and to put your activities and to put, your senior management, if they're coming to visit the stand, and just to create a buzz around anything you've got going is through the news feed on the app. So keep an eye out for that too.
That's great. Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, so I'll carry on just for a few more minutes before we sort of break into the Q&A for everybody. Ultimately what we're there to do, I'm guessing, there might be some third sector, there might be some sort of charities, but on the whole, I think most of us are in business to secure business, to retain business, to make a profit. And so this slide is really giving you an overview of the kind of funnel of influence that we're trying to achieve overall, particularly with digital marketing. And I know it's not only about digital marketing, but that does play an important part on it. What we're trying to sort of achieve really is ultimately getting people to convert and become a customer. So at the top of the funnel is we're trying to get exposure. And this is equally important with you exhibiting as it is, trying to get exposure online. So, we're trying to reach out. We're trying to get our name heard. We're trying to be visible at the show and pre-show and post-show and so on. But then once people hear about us and search for us or go and check us out on our websites or online, what they discover there is really important. It's work done by Saatchi and Google, and it's called the ZMOT, which is a zero moment of truth. And it's that point at which someone Googles you, and what do they find? Do they find a load of sales spiel, or do they actually find some really authoritative content that helps differentiate you from the competition? Because the fact is, at the moment, particularly with all the influx in the last 4 or 5 years of social media channels, people are frightened of being really hard sold to. They don't want to be bamboozled with sales messages. At the moment, we're living in, it sounds a bit grand, but it is the age of the customer. And it's because people can search for everything and give comparative reviews and do all their own kind of research that we're no longer in the age of information, but we're in the age of having to adapt and respond to people who are, effectively very influential customers who need information and want to go out and do that competitive analysis and research and pricing and so on. So what they discover about you, be that a really important video that is a client saying how wonderful you are and how you've helped them with the point of pain that they had. That's important. So we're moving down the funnel from simple exposure to them discovering something really important about you and then actually considering you alongside others because you have a product or service that matches their particular needs. And at this point, all the authoritative credibility and third party endorsements that come from being on the media or, you know, actually standing up on a panel at the show are all really important to actually, you help them convert, into a sale basically. So, once they've converted, the job really just starts then, because then you go into that mode of doing great customer relationship and loyalty and customer service and trying to retain them. But really those early phases are using the show, using the PR around it and the third party credibility that comes from editorial and LinkedIn recommendations and so on to help aid that conversion process. So I hope that just helps, in terms of thinking through how all of the dots join up together. So, just some final key considerations, while you're planning over the next month, for the show. Ask yourself and double check whether your profiles are up to date. Do they look good? Do they have quality third party information available on them? Can they be accessed remotely, via mobiles, via tablets? Has somebody got resources? Have you planned for somebody to be doing the tweeting, prior to, during the show, while people are busy on the stand taking inquiries? Have you designated somebody to actually do the engagement and respond and take advantage of the hashtag that we mentioned earlier? And with that in mind, are you using some really effective dashboards, for example, TweetReach and Hootsuite, which enable you to schedule, for example, a whole group of tweets prior to the event? So Jack and Cassie, who are on this webinar, my team, we get involved in events like the Facility Show. We were at one yesterday, which is a big event in our region in Kent. And we'd scheduled ahead of the big Kent 2020 show, 50 to 60 tweets for the Kent show, but also specifically for @Zoodikers and my Twitter @KTEKing. And they can be done in advance. So it may be saying, our chief executive is going to be on the stand this afternoon between 1 and 2 and, is available to you at IFMnet or you at FMJ if you'd love to come along and have a chat. Or, next up in X room is John, and he's going to be talking to you about, the workplace of the future. So it could be that you can do some of that information that you can plan well in advance via a free package like Hootsuite. And again, with exactly that in mind, thinking about the thought leadership type activity that you can do and the banks of content, possibly even the difficult Q&A crisis comms type of content that you might need to prepare in advance. Have you got that ready at your fingertips so that if time isn't available on the day, you can simply draw upon that pre-prepared information, all of things like that. And as Lindsay mentioned, it's thinking about, pre-show, thinking who's going to win the best social media campaign. Hopefully you can take advantage of that and show everybody, just how fantastic your campaign is. So with that in mind, unless Lindsay's got any final points to really add in there, I just really wanted to say, don't be frightened by it, because we do work with a lot of companies, and many of them a year ago were looking at social media and were quite skeptical and were fearful of it. And I think in the past 6 to 9 months, people have seen and been reassured by the fact that that these platforms are here to stay for quite a long time and that they are very effective. So I would sort of encourage you all to make sure you do the best you can, obviously, with your stand and your graphics and all of the obvious things you can do, but engage with the Facility Show blog and take advantage of the Facility Show LinkedIn group and the same groups for the different media and the different networking groups and the trade associations like the Building Futures group, and use it to your advantage. Don't just sort of post randomly and post real sales messages, but try where you can to engage with people and to try and generate your views and your thought leadership. Because what that will do post show, it will give you some fantastic collateral that you can then share, beyond that. And it might be great collateral, as we did with ISS, to go to the media and say, have a look at this CEO standing up at the facility show giving a talk. Would you be interested in him contributing to the article that you've got coming up on, total facilities management? Or you use it for visitors that weren't able to come along to say, here's the highlight video of our CEO giving a presentation, on the debate panel. Come along and have a look at it on our website, and we'll be running an event like that in a month's time, and we'll invite you along. So, you're using it as a kind of whetting the appetite of people that were there to follow up with, or those that weren't, that you can now look to engage with. So, good luck with your final preparations. My team and Lindsay's team are there on hand to help you. So just drop us an email or tweet us, or give us a call, and we'll be there to help you. So with that in mind, we'll unmute. Hopefully we can unmute everybody and open it up. Obviously, you've got an opportunity to sort of post it, to write up your questions, but actually we're clicking on the unmute. It doesn't look as if we can do that. So sorry, I don't think we can actually unmute you all. So also, it will probably be a bit unwieldy to have all of us trying to speak at the same time. So if you have a question for Lindsay or myself, you can see the box there. Type that in. I can read that question out to everybody, and then we can attempt to answer that for you. I can't see anybody typing at the moment. So, obviously feel free to disappear a little bit earlier. I had allowed 10-15 minutes for questions. So, oh, hang on a minute. No, I think we can see some there. Do we know of any new platforms that might be used for the event? Well, there are new social media platforms cropping up all the time. I don't think that over and above Google Plus, Instagram, there are ones that the kind of Snapchats and the WhatsApps, but I don't think they're very appropriate for a business to business audience. So I don't think that some of the really new ones are actually very relevant, to you. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend the really new ones, but I certainly would say that, the Google Plus, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, using Vine over your Twitter are probably the key ones that I would focus on for the show, over and above doing your own PR, and directly reaching out to the media one-to-one and so on. So, that's important too. A link to the FM show blog. Lindsay, I don't know if Lindsay could.
A link
to
the.
Would you be able to remind us
of
would you be able to remind everybody of the link to the show's blog?
Okay, I think we might have to send it.
Yep.
We can send it to the registered.
That would be great. Yeah, we'll send it round to everybody. How often should we tweet? Well, to keep that was the next question. How often should we be tweeting? I guess it does really relate to, having quality information to tweet. In an ideal world, I would recommend that you tweet in the morning and in the afternoon every day. Certainly at least 3 times a week. And certainly if you're only going to tweet once a week, I wouldn't bother at all. So, but the caveat there is that you are posting quality content, but not all of that content needs to be generated, by you, because presumably the opportunity to retweet other people and to go and find excellent third-party content. It might be a great article on, FMJ, or a really interesting article in a cleaning journal or in the Financial Times, and you can tweet a link to that, not just retweeting them saying it themselves, but go straight to the source and actually tweet that, yourself. So the key is definitely the regular tweeting with quality content, and making sure it's not just posting, it's engaging. In other words, you are actually responding, to other people. Lindsay, the next question, is there a launch date for the Facility Show app?
It's not, I can't give you a precise date, but it'll be within the next fortnight, and we'll communicate that to everybody via the database. Can I give you the link here for the blog? It's blog facilitieshow.com.
That's great, thank you.
So blog.facilitieshow.com.
Okay, that's lovely. The next question was, do we rate Flickr? Yes, I do. Yeah, I think, Instagram and Flickr are excellent. So yeah, I would certainly look at uploading your images to Flickr as well. Next question, should we upload news items to other places such as our websites? Most definitely, yeah. So this is the process for us. This is what we typically do. There's a press release. You put the press release up on your website. You then issue the press release through email, pick up the phone, let the press know about it to the journalists. You could, for example, do it as a direct piece of media engagement, not just to press, but also to directly to your customers. So it's a news release rather than just a media release. So that's the process. It goes up on your website, it gets emailed to the journalists, but then it also gets @messaged with a link in the Twitter or a post in the LinkedIn or in any of the other platforms. And you @message those media. So you've sent it via email, but you've also used it as part of your own content feed on Twitter to say, @Simon Yattrou, thought you might be interested in our latest news release about XXX, and you might put the hashtag fact show with a URL link to that on your website. Then when the editorial coverage starts to appear in the media, you can post that on your Google Plus or on your Twitter or on your LinkedIn and in your LinkedIn group. And it could be along the lines of, we're featured today in @FMJ FM Journal. Here's a link to the article. And then you're tweeting a link to the article on the media. And that's going to help your search engine optimization. It's also etiquette in terms of, reaching out to those particular people. So again, that's just a good way of it being on multiple places. But if it's just on your website and you're just waiting for people to find you, that's limiting. But if you broaden that out, wider via Twitter and all of these other social platforms, hopefully it will be visible to more people, and you'll be sending it directly via email, to other people. So, that's just, hopefully that's helpful. Can we tag people now in photos on Twitter from an Android device? Good question. Is that Lee? Yeah, I think that's your question. Jack, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Can you tag people in photos on Twitter from Android now?
Devices. I thought you could. I've not tried it on Android.
Haven't tried it is the honest answer. So we'll have to go and check. I know now you can send multiple pictures in your tweets, which is a big development on being able to just tweet one picture. But that's something I'd have to check, Lee, and we'll come back to you on that. And we can share that via Twitter if we know the answer, or if you find the answer, share it with other people as well. So, okay. I don't think there are any more questions, but we're here for a few more minutes if anybody does. No, I think we've answered all of those. I'm just scrolling down because it's such a small little window, which is why we couldn't see them. Great. Okay. Good. Well, I hope that's useful to all of you. And somebody's asked if colleagues can actually get a copy of the webinar. We have recorded this webinar. Lindsay, are you happy to make that available, to people?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get that sorted.
That was the purpose. So I'll download that afterwards and get that as a file and over to Lindsay, and we'll make that available for your colleagues, who've been unable to join this webinar. But, share with us, or feel free to type in anything you think I've missed. I mean, I know we've just been going through questions, but if anybody's got any other areas of best practice, we're all experienced marketeers. So if any of you have got particular, stories or best practice that you'd like to share, then, do feel free to kind of jot that in. If anyone's got a nugget of wisdom they want to share, or anything in particular you think I've missed, I'd be more than happy. We're learning all the time, where this world is evolving by the minute. So, it's challenging to constantly stay on top of it. By training on it regularly, weekly, it does force us to stay as much as we can on top of it. But, we're there just like you are to keep learning and so on. But hopefully there's been a few nuggets of wisdom and a few ideas to get the cogs turning as you do your last minute preparation for the show. So if there's no more questions, then Lindsay, I don't know if you've got anything else you wanted to add at the end.
No, that's fine, but just don't hesitate to get in touch. I think that's it.
Excellent. Great. Well, thank you all very, very much for your time. And we'll see you in June, and we'll see you on Twitter and LinkedIn and all the other platforms in the meantime. Thank you all very much indeed for your time. Thank you.